today I'm going to do a review of the last half of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. I really love the series. I have reviews of Lightning Thief and Sea of Monsters. I will link them down below, but this is the reviews of the last part, which I have marathoned for the Bout of Books 9.0 challenge. And yeah, so these are the books. So the first in the last part of the series is Titan's Curse, and I can't remember what happened. Oh, in this one, Annabeth gets taken by a half lion, half human something, a monster, and Percy and Thalia and Grover have to save her. Oh, and there's also the women on the hunt, girls on the hunt. I read this like 3 days ago, but I still can't remember what happened. I had mixed feelings about this one. I loved Percy in this one. I thought his teenage angst was starting to come in, and it was just so good to see his character. And even though he annoyed me a bit, like how Harry Potter is a bit of a dick in the last part of the Harry Potter series, Percy Jackson gets to be a bit of a dick, but I think it's his age that does it. He's a bit of a cocky 13-year-old since he's the son of a god. And I did not like Thalia, who is the daughter of Zeus. I just didn't like her. Thought she tried to be better than Percy a lot, and I just didn't like her. I think I liked her in relation to Annabeth, but didn't like her in relation to Percy. I guess if we were from Annabeth's point of view, she wouldn't have been so annoying, but from Percy's point of view, she was very annoying. So, and we were introduced to a lot of characters. We were introduced to Thalia, Zoe Nightingale, Blackjack, the Pegasus that Percy adopts during this. Tyson's also there, and that's just all the characters that we know and love from the first 2 books are here, and this series just makes me happy. I just like laughing at everything Percy says. It's just, he's really funny. Yeah, I think that's all I can say about this. This was, out of these 3 books, this was the worst. I liked it, and again, saying it's the worst one of these 3 books is like saying it's the worst kind of chocolate cake. It is still really good, but it's just the worst in my mind. So I'm going to move on to Battle Labyrinth, which I really loved. I loved all the action scenes in this, and all the cute Percy and Annabeth scenes, and I loved it, and Thalia wasn't there. So during this book, Annabeth and Percy discover that there is an entrance to the labyrinth in the borders of the camp, meaning that Luke and Kronos' army can get into the camp with their army, and so they try to go into the labyrinth, find the creator, and get him to shut down the labyrinth or make sure that Luke cannot get through. I really loved this one. I loved the everything. I loved the little like in Titan's Curse we meet a character called Rachel Elizabeth Dare. She's in it for about like a page maybe. Percy nearly kills her because he thinks she can't see his sword, and because most mortals see it as a pen, and when she can, she thinks he's going to kill her, but obviously his sword doesn't work on humans. But she returns in this one, and they fight some monsters together, and she her reasoning for seeing the sight is explored more in this book. I hated that Annabeth still has an attachment to Luke, even though Luke's horrible to her and it's left and it's evil, and I really hate him. But Annabeth still seems to love him, and I think that makes Percy really jealous. And I love the character development in these books, because I think I can see the romance between Annabeth and Percy developing, but I can tell they're way too young to need each other yet, because they are 14 nearly. I think Percy is at least is 14, nearly 15 in this book, and yeah, so I think they're too young at the minute to be mature enough to have each other and keep each other, which I think is good that they don't get together in this book. I also thought the last bit was so sweet. Spoiler alert if you haven't read this book. But at the end, it is Percy's 15th birthday party, and Poseidon turns up to his birthday party, which is so sweet because the gods don't normally do that for their children. And Percy goes, "Oh, well, this guy I met in the Labyrinth said that he was your favourite son," and Poseidon goes to him, "You're my favourite son, Percy," and just, it's so sweet. And I love the bits with Athena, where Athena told Percy to stay away from her daughter, and I just love it. And oh, I love this book. I love the Battle of the Labyrinth. It was so good. It was kind of like the Battle of Hogwarts. And I know I compare these books to Harry Potter a lot. I will admit freely, I have not finished the Harry Potter series. I have only seen the Battle of Hogwarts in the films. But it's kind of how I pictured that being if I read the book. But yeah, it was so good, and I love Percy in this book. He's just getting to be less of a dick and more of a sweet guy who's realising how much he likes Annabeth. Now the last book, The Last Olympian, was the perfect ending for this series. It was just so good, and it had me just shipping Percy through the whole thing. I was just, every time Percy and Annabeth were in the same scene, you can guarantee I was crying about it and thinking, "Oh, Percy, why don't you just kiss her?" And then they did at the end, and I was just like, it's so good. And I love that Clarice was still being annoying and she didn't want to take part in the battle, and I like that most of this book was the battle. There wasn't some big quest in this book. It was all the battle. I mean, there was the quest with Nico to get Percy the Achilles curse, but there was no real quest that took up the whole book. It was just the battle, because this battle was going to take that long. And even though the battle only stemmed about 4 days, it still took up half of this book because a lot happened in it. I liked Dally came back and with the hunters and helped out, and I loved Annabeth taking the knife for Percy, and I really loved it. And I loved how it ended, that Percy wasn't the whole hero of it. I mean, we've always thought, because of the prophecy, that Percy was going to be the one to save Olympus, save or destroy Olympus. But it turns out that even though he did make the choice, it wasn't him really that saved Olympus on his own. Annabeth and Luke and him and everyone else, and Poseidon as well, all were in that group who did it and who helped out and who was so great in defending Olympus. And I loved it that Dionysus admitted that they need demigods to exist. Like, they cannot exist without demigods. And I like that Percy didn't become a god because of Annabeth. And I loved the last scene with it's so good. And I'm really excited to read The Lost Hero, which I just got in the post today. Isn't it pretty? I got the American edition. But I'm really excited. It really set it up for the Lost Hero and the Heroes of Olympus books. I think it was so good. And I think I'm going to like Heroes of Olympus a lot more, even though I loved Percy Jackson, because I think it's aimed more at a young adult audience, whereas Percy Jackson is very much a middle grade book. And yeah, so I do really love this series, and Rick Riordan is going to kill me in Lost Hero and the other books in that series. I can tell, because people already moan about how sad it is whenever a character dies in the book. And just, the prophecy really intrigued me to the Lost Hero as well, that Rachel Dare said. I mean, I'm going to stop talking now because I think I'm going to give way too much away. And I know that this is definitely a spoilery review, and I'm sorry about that. I don't think I warned about spoilers. I'll put an alert in at the bottom in text. I hope I did that. You will have seen it or not seen it, because I don't know. Maybe you're not even watching this. Oh well. Well, that was my review of the Percy Jackson series. I'd love you to comment down below what you thought of this series if you have read it, and that's my phone. So I will see you in my next video. Bye.